Welcome to Engaging ESG, where we consider, challenge, and celebrate the evolving world of environmental, social, and governance communications. I'm Jennifer Owen, Senior Director of Marketing at Caesar.
And I'm Kati Callens, Global Sustainability Lead at Adobe. For Season 3, we're talking with climate communications leaders who are shaping the future of sustainability messaging. From connecting with stakeholders to crafting compelling impact stories, we'll uncover the strategies that worked and learn from those that didn't.
Whether you're a seasoned pro or new to the field, you'll find practical tips and insights in every episode.
And whether you're working on your first sustainability report or reimagining your organization's climate narrative, these conversations will help you navigate the complexities of ESG communications. Let's get started.
Hello, Kati. How you doing?
Hi, Jen. I'm good. I'm all cozied up today. It's chilly in San Francisco, but we have some much needed rain coming.
Okay, tell me what cozy and cold in San Francisco is.
No, I won't. I'm sorry. I refuse. Yes, it is chilly.
We're not going to stack rank our woes of temperatures? Okay, good to know.
No, definitely not. I don't want to do that with someone in New York. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cozy is a relative concept, as we learned from the Nordics, right? With hygge.
We are open to all perspectives. We love to embrace and include, but there's no equity here, my friend. No equity.
No.
So Kati, I am looking forward to our conversation today. We are talking about a topic that we have yet to tackle on Engaging ESG, which is how to actually find the people we need to power the transformation to a more sustainable world.
Yes. And when we were thinking about who might be the right folks to bring in for this conversation, we very quickly thought about this group called Acre, which is a pioneering firm that's been recruiting in sustainability for over 2 decades. And so we're really grateful to have these 2 leaders to join us today to help us understand the talent landscape within the broader sustainability industry. So would you like to introduce our guests?
I would love to. Today, we are joined by Richard Kent, who heads research for North America at Acre, where he leads complex searches for sustainability leaders across industries from clean tech to the big Fortune 500 companies. And we're also joined by Catherine Harris, who brings a decade of experience recruiting senior sustainability executives and board members. And she's a board member of the Future Fit Foundation and co-author of The Social Board, which explores board engagement on ESG issues, which is something we're going to touch on today, too. So welcome to Engaging ESG, Richard and Catherine.
Thank you for having us. Very excited.
Thanks so much. Excited to be here.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's just jump right in. So just to start us off, we know that both of you have such a unique vantage point on the sustainability talent landscape. And maybe, Richard, we'll start with you to help us understand, when you look ahead into 2025 and beyond, what trends are you watching most closely in the sustainability recruitment space right now? How have you seen the market evolve?
That's a big question.
Sustainability
and it's big, right? Sustainability in and of its own right is such a broad aperture. But I think Catherine may agree with me on this, and that is that I feel like for the last couple of years, especially in the US, we've seen businesses hiring people that are going to focus on strategy and setting initial goals, getting SBTs approved. And now it's sort of moving on to the next stage. There's this emphasis on delivery. How do we actually achieve the 2030, 2040, 2050 plans that we've set? The clock is ticking and everyone's really aware of that. And it's time to get people on the team to actually make that happen.
Yeah. Catherine, do you see that happening at these higher levels as well? Like, are the boards engaged on this? Because we're hearing that at Caesar too. Like, oh no, the clock, we're running out of time.
Yeah, the boards are increasingly more and more engaged and aware. They can't really avoid it these days with all the legislation and regulation that's coming out of Europe in particular. In terms of the implementation at a senior executive level, I would say it's less so. It's a very different beast, obviously, where we're looking for people who are very good at the strategic piece and they can take a helicopter view and they'll work with teams who are either on the ground or who are working closely with supply chains to actually get the work done. But they need to at least understand how it's done and ideally have been through that themselves. So we are often looking for someone who can speak to having had that implementation experience in the past. They know what good looks like.
How do you see the sustainability, the ESG? We always use ESG to mean sustainability, but diversity too. But ESG competencies being valued at these levels, like when they're looking, especially with the timelines approaching and the like, are the competencies top of mind
For the board members?
for the board? Yeah, for the boards.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the landscape's changed so rapidly in the last week.
Yeah.
Let alone
What happened?
Yeah, I know. So I dare say even now there's been a few shifts in priorities, but we continue to look back at the investor lens and what it is that they care about most, and it still is quite compelling evidence coming out now, and just in terms of the investment proposal around sustainability. And PwC just came out with a report where they polled, I think it's something like 4,000 CEOs who, when they're asked what keeps them up at night, this is this is a key priority for them. But also they recognize that it's a good long-term investment. It's either costing them nothing or it's giving them an advantage competitively. But for the most part, it's understood that it's a sensible thing to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think, Catherine, you bring up the fact that we just went through the inauguration. This will get posted a little bit after that. But I do think kind of in this current political space that we're in, as maybe folks who are job searching or as they're thinking about career transitions, how are you seeing the skill set shift as companies are figuring out? Maybe I'll throw it back to Richard for kind of how is this shaping how you're thinking about recruitment or skills for these folks in broader ESG field roles?
Yeah, I think we're seeing this need to tie sustainability and ESG issues with the bottom line. It's sort of always been the case, but it's not just about storytelling anymore. It's about profitability and resilience. And so people who can speak both languages, who can speak human rights and supply chain traceability, but also go to the CFO and figure out, okay, how are we going to allocate this money over this period of time and until we start realizing the returns on this investment, and help them see the business case and take that to the board. It's that skill set that's really hard to find people who can do both, but it's going to get more and more important.
Yeah, that brings up for me, I think something we talked about in the prep call as well is sometimes you'll see these job postings that say 10 years experience needed on sustainable supply chains. And were we even calling them sustainable supply chains? So I would love to hear either of your thoughts about just kind of how it seems to me like companies are still struggling with how to frame these roles and talk about this work because the industry is relatively mature, but then also to your point, like people do kind of need this unicorn of a human that can wear all these different hats. So how do you balance that?
Yeah, I mean, now is another very interesting time to be talking about this because we're also trying to reframe the profession in a way that's going to be palatable to a wider audience or a certain audience. And so there's a lot of head scratching around how we frame it, first of all. So that means that we're moving away from language like ESG.
Yes.
And, thinking about things like resilience and risk and retention and efficiency. So a company might be thinking about employee engagement and retaining staff and couching it in that way. I think when it comes to supply chains, similarly so, we're talking about resilience and risk and threats to supply chains, whether that's geopolitical or related to water shortages or whatever might come as a result of climate change. So in terms of how these roles are being sort of shifted, I think that's still an ongoing story as we're watching it play out. There's some more interesting pieces, though, to think about. One is the ESG controller, and I know it's been bandied around a lot. We, until quite recently, have not seen much of that activity in our own business, but we've actually been having a couple of calls very recently companies looking for an ESG controller, but primarily a CPA, a certified professional accountant, who might know something about ESG, but it's not essential. And actually other positions where they wonder if they should even be working with a company like ours, because we're so squarely sort of known to be the sustainability recruiters. There's a concern that we might be too squarely in that space when companies are looking for a much broader skill set, particularly when it comes to reporting, where they might want someone who's going to sit in their finance or their legal team instead. So I think this speaks a lot to Richard's earlier point about this integration of business and sustainability, and the sustainability practitioner having to adapt not just their job title, but also their approach so that it resonates with the commercial bottom line and the commitments that the company's looking to make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And are the unicorns growing because I want, like, how do you become one of these unicorns? You're in the company as the company is shifting and needs you to take it on.
Yeah.
Like their internal development, as opposed to you're coming out of school with both or the like.
If I can jump in here, I think that's sort of an interesting idea. When I first started at Acre years ago, well after Catherine, but years ago, even then, when we talked about sustainability professionals, it was very much a generalist title. Someone who moved up the ranks, they knew a little bit about everything.
Yeah.
Right.
But we're starting to see, as sort of the industry and the need matures, more specialists who have a background in accountancy or things like that, who are then taking on skill sets around sustainability. We're seeing that ability to grow in your career in a more specialized field within sustainability as well. I know that's somewhat generic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just to add to that, I think, again, a more executive level where you're going to be engaging with the board and making a business case and looking for investment effectively. I do see more and more people at that level taking MBAs, and I'm not necessarily suggesting everyone goes out and gets one. They're very expensive. But I think there's lots of skills there that become increasingly useful. Being able to talk about a commercial business case and using data to demonstrate how ESG initiatives can contribute to financial and operational success. That is not necessarily a muscle that your average sustainability practitioner has had to use. And I think increasingly it's going to become really, really important, that, and being able to sort of concentrate on impact and the delivery of that. And so being able to concentrate on results and the issues that matter to stakeholders, aligning those with business goals. So everything is taking a much sharper focus and is under so much more scrutiny that I think that's the skill set and that's the terminology that we should be thinking in more and more. And if that means going off and doing a course or something that helps you sharpen up that language in particular, I think that'd be very, very useful.
Yeah, I think you guys bring up a great point, which is around I love the idea of the upskilling within the organization, or also if you're job seeking, how do you upskill? And what I'm hearing from you is there's kind of maybe two main categories as I think about it in terms of internal engagement with other teams, right? There's like, how does that team communicate value? What is the language that those executives are receptive to? Which is often very much built into the culture, right? Like a procurement team at Meta and Adobe might not speak with the same language and the same culture. And so one of the benefits of upskilling is within the company is to maybe learn about how your cross team members speak, but also maybe if you're job searching, there's, I think, almost an overwhelming number of courses out there right now for folks who want to break into this space. And it can feel, I think, quite confusing to know which ones to take. And so I wonder if either of you,
this topic. I just feel like there is a vacuum and there has been this rush in, and I'm going to take them all at face value that they're doing it from the goodness of their hearts, but it is overwhelming. All the opportunities. Take my course and you will be, you're going to be a sustainability hire.
Yeah.
And so what do you think about that?
I could jump in first. I mean, well, we've got a lot to say on that topic. I think, yes, it helps and it won't get you a job. I think it will give you a bit more confidence in terms of going into these roles. And if you're already in an operational role or a marketing or a comms role, then great. It will add to your knowledge and make you more effective at what you do, because ultimately we want sustainability to be embedded in every single function in a business. And we want everyone to be upskilled in that way. And so absolutely, if you get access to a course or your company pays for you to go through a course which helps you just get your arms around a lot of complex language, then great.
Yeah.
But if I'm hiring a director of sustainability, then I'm looking for someone or a VP, then I'm looking for someone with extensive experience and a real track record. And if someone comes and says, well, I'm a trained lawyer, 20 years experience, can I, slot into this role? The answer is 99% of the time, no, I'm afraid not. This stuff is complex and it does require a real honed skill set that we'll work on over years.
Yeah. I think the getting to know the lingo, and there is a lot of gatekeeping around sustainability work. And because I came into this world from diversity and I never felt the same. It's the math and the science. And then there's a little of the holier than thou purity tests that can come in this field as well. And I always felt in the diversity space, know your numbers, know that it's terrible, know the difference between inclusion and equity, and we'll take you. So it's not as much, and a lot of generalists in diversity space as well. But their industry, that's a whole other world that's happening to them right now as we speak on this day, this week, and the like.
I'm wondering if we could drill down into that just a little bit more in case folks who are listening really are like, okay, but give me something tangible.
Yeah. I'm never getting a job. It's
are
done.
there specific skills or experiences that either of you are seeing becoming increasingly critical for sustainability leaders? Where are the gaps? When you guys are seeing resumes and of course executive level, but maybe also mid-level, are there kind of skills or competencies that you're wishing you saw more of that people should be thinking about?
Do you want to go first, Richard? Or I'm happy. You want me? Okay. We just did a big piece of work for a client on this, and it's fascinating. When you look at the sustainability competencies as you grow through your career and become an executive, maybe it's obvious, but at more junior level, then we expect people to have very strong technical skills, the ability to crunch data and process that, and then interpret that data and then influence the business as you get more senior and say, okay, this is what this might mean. And as you become more senior, building on those technical skills and understanding, you're honing those change management skills. And I think that's first and foremost, it's absolutely crucial to a really strong sustainability leader, is the ability to bring people along with you. And it's cheesy, but go along on a journey with you. And that means knowing how to involve people in decision making and get their buy-in, and all those soft skills really do matter so much more at that senior executive level. But of course, to be credible to your team and to the wider business, having that bedrock of understanding of what all these issues are and how to articulate them is also important. But the focus shifts.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Catherine took some of the words out of my mouth there. I think the change management piece is, the higher up you go in sustainability world, it's probably 90% of the job. It's getting diverse stakeholders on the same page, figuring out how to align interests and goals and get those things done. The goal of just about any sustainability executive might be pretty much to work yourself out of the job by embedding it so much in the way the business operates that you don't have to be the champion anymore. You don't want to just have a separate team over on the side talking about these things, but you want it running throughout the organization in general.
Yes. Yeah.
I know.
That does bring up a really good point around how to organize for sustainability, which we often get asked about as well. It's just, do we have a discrete team on the side, or do we have a tiny little team, but really everything else is embedded within the functions? And either works. I don't think there is actually a better or worse scenario. It really does depend on the business and how you're already set up and who your champions are, et cetera, et cetera.
And what the pain points are. Have you figured out scope 1 and 2? Great. Then we're talking about bigger topics, or are you starting from the beginning and the like? So now I was wondering, so Richard, you have North America. like, are there regional differences, like when you're talking to your peers and the like, about how the organizations are approaching their talent and how they're recruiting into these fields? I just wonder if North America is any different than EMEA or APAC or the like.
I mean, I think the main difference is probably just how long businesses in North America have been addressing these things. Some of these large established firms have been doing this work for a while, but for the most part, we're sort of the baby of the world in terms of what we're doing. So when I talk to my colleagues in Europe, just the understanding and the knowledge and just the general acceptance around the topics that we're talking about is just much higher. And so I feel like a lot of what I'm doing in the US, and Catherine would agree, is educating our clients on like, well, what can a sustainability executive do? What does the market bear in terms of talent? What's available? Like you said earlier, you want somebody who's been doing this 10, 15, 20 years. Well, have those people been around here? So it's a lot of education.
Yeah.
And, we're having a lot more experience sort of telling the market who we are and what we do. Catherine, you've been with Acre much longer. I'll let you weigh in. And you've been in both sides of the ocean. So you might have an interesting perspective here.
Yeah, I've definitely been here for 6 years almost to the day. And so I've slightly forgotten how it was when I first arrived. But the one thing that was clear is it's just a very different phase on the journey. And I think I did find myself taking a little bit of a step back just in terms of the level of the conversation. But that's okay. I mean, I think also in the US, they're catching up pretty quick. And there's some real movers and shakers in this space as well now that are leading the way globally. So my impressions from 6 years ago compared to what I'm seeing now is just night and day.
Really?
It's moved on so fast.
Yeah.
And also it's having to be very reactive to what's coming out of Europe. Like I say, it's been quite interesting. Now we're seeing more and more conversations evolving about social issues. When I was recruiting 8 years ago, 9 years ago in the UK, 10 years ago, it was all about human rights and social issues because that's what everyone was focused on. And over here, of course, it's been climate really almost all the way. And then all of a sudden, American companies are being hit with CSDDD,
right?
And this need to report on human rights, and they haven't even started a program. And so we're getting to have some quite interesting conversations with our clients about human rights, and the talent pool in that space here compared to climate is very different as well. It's kind of fascinating.
And speaking of climate, I think the other side of that is innovation. We are seeing so much investment going into the innovation side, whether it's alternatives fuels, energy storage, carbon capture technologies, software programs. There's so much cool stuff going on here in the US that other markets are sort of either trying to get involved in or trying to catch up to.
That brings up, I have two questions for both of you, and feel free to riff on them as much as you want that came up from all the great knowledge that you're sharing. One is, I think sometimes with job postings, never, of course, on the Acre website, but just generally, I can tell that a company is early on its sustainability journey when they write a job description that is like a kitchen sink.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And like maybe ChatGPT wrote it. So would love to get your thoughts about how folks who are looking at these kitchen sink job postings should maybe parse through what's actually most relevant, or if they should just do their best to try to meet those. And then the other thought that I had around kind of earlier career professionals is that along with getting technical skills, one of the things that I reflect on that I'm so grateful I have after almost 15 years in this space is I've really built up a network of folks who are also doing similar work, because even as I try to do change management within my company, there's other people who are trying to do similar challenges. And just having some of those people to lean on and ask is also kind of an early career skill set. So those are two questions that came up for me.
Great. In terms of these bucket lists that we get, I mean, yeah, it's funny. Sometimes that they are very, very accurate. That's the problem, because a lot of these roles, especially a VP level or a director level, it's just a brand new role and the company has a bazillion things and they just maybe don't know what they don't know yet, and they don't know how big this role is.
Why, yes, you will be doing everything. Thank you so much.
Yes, and once you prove the business case, we can maybe give you someone in your team, 1 or 2 people if you're lucky, sort of thing. So
Yes.
it often is spot on. And we try to make sure our adverts are very accessible. So we try and make sure that the language is such that we're not putting X amount of years experience or anything that might preclude people or put people off from applying. But in the end of the day, I think I would always encourage people to not get too fixated on every single bullet, because we won't find that person. We're going to have to be flexible. We are always talking to our clients about needing to be flexible and open-minded. And while we say that we're experts in hunting purple unicorns or purple squirrels, there's going to be aspects of that individual that they're just not going to get. And that's where they need to provide training or support in other ways. So, yeah, I'd encourage people to not be too put off by that, but also expect with a role like that to be having to be very strategic and also roll their sleeves up and get their hands dirty as well. Do all the things.
You often in this industry you have to roll your hands up. But I mean I think what you should really do with that is use that when you're going through the interview process to ask smart questions. Hey, this long list, what sort of resources are going to be at my disposal? Will there be potential to hire a team? Will I have access to consulting? What is that going to look like? And that can help you decide, okay, can I do this job in, 40, 60, 80 hours a week, whatever that is, can I get this done? And then also on that topic is sort of the idea of equity and diversity and inclusion. Jennifer, I'm sure you're quite aware of the impact of how job descriptions are written and how that might impact who actually applies.
Correct.
And so I would encourage anybody who's looking at these job descriptions, if you think you can do the job, don't only apply if you tick every box, like Catherine said. There's nobody out there that's a purple squirrel that's going to do it all. It's worth a shot. I can let you maybe dig in on the statistics of how that impacts things on your own. But
yes,
I think your second question was around networking and the value therein. I mean, there's a reason why there are so many sustainability professional networking groups, because we need to share this knowledge with one another. We need to support one another, whether it's just blowing off steam or figuring out, okay, well, how do we get this done? One of my first clients when I joined here was actually a nonprofit group that supported professionals in municipalities and cities. And they literally were sharing, how did you get that approved by a city council? How did you get that done? They were things like that. And we actually, one of my reports, one of our really great team members here is on Out in Climate. It's a group in New York and on the East Coast that supports people in LGBTQIA community to figure out how they can do more with what they do. And I'll have to let her speak more about that. But there are a lot of groups and there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
We have to share this knowledge. But that also goes into the work itself. So much of what we're doing, especially in scope 3, we need alignment with others in the industry. There's this sort of idea of a pre-competitive partnership. And so many companies form those so that they can move the needle forward with tier 1, tier 2, et cetera, suppliers. I know I'm jumping a little bit all over the place here, but
it is. It really is. And that's the point. It's like you're jumping all over and that's going to lead you to your place.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's going to help you find your path. And to that point, in the idea of sharing knowledge, Katie likes to ask about what you're reading. And so I'm going to jump her and say, what are you reading? Like, what's got you jazzed that you think other people should be, like a group, a list, fun movie? I don't know.
That's a great question. I mean,
that's why I stole it from Katie, by the way.
Yeah, no, it's great. I have to say that right now it's very sort of down to the fact that I'm going to Tanzania in 3 weeks or something. I sit on the board of an organization called Wild Survivors, and they conserve elephants with bees. So it's a fascinating little nonprofit that puts bee fences up around the fields in Tanzania to stop the bees from raiding the fields and taking the crops and effectively being shot by the farmers. They're terrified of bees. So I'm excited to go out and see that conservation work in action. And so all I'm reading right now is anything to do with Tanzania. There's a book by a lady called Delia Owens who wrote Where the Crawdads Sing. And I just was curious about what else she'd written. And it turns out she's a really big conservationist and wrote a book about elephants in Zambia called The Eye of the Elephant, which is a fascinating account of poaching elephants and also deeply upsetting in Tanzania. So I've just finished that. And Desert Solitaire is another book that sure a lot of people know. And Richard's sick of hearing me banging on about that book, but I just found that
one of my favorites.
So inspiring. Yeah. And Richard Powers, I just finished as well. He wrote The Overstory. And he's just written another one called Playground, which is the ocean. And it's amazing. So anything Earth planet related, I generally tend to gravitate towards.
How about you, Richard?
I got a bit of a long answer here. Anytime I'm going for a walk or doing dishes or cleaning up, I'm listening to podcasts. And one of the first ones I go to is Catalyst with Shale Khan. If you haven't listened, he's an excellent storyteller, just incredibly knowledgeable, and he brings on really great people. I like this little podcast called Engaging ESG. It's got these two great hosts. I think they come from ESG comms in the tech world. Climate Positive, Columbia Energy Exchange. If you can't tell, I'm going down an energy kick there.
Yeah.
There's some really great newsletters. In my role as head of research, I subscribe to pretty much anything I can get my hands on, and I just disperse it to the team. But Canary Media puts out a lot of great content. And it kind of depends on what you do and what you're passionate about. For example, I follow a law firm that sort of keeps me up to date on all the human rights and sort of business and human rights regulations and compliance issues and changes going around the world. I think there's Simpson and Thatcher. They put out a great sort of weekly update email. Regenerative food systems investment is cool. Catherine and I haven't got a chance yet to talk about it, but we love talking about ag tech and food systems. There's a lot going on there. We could, if you want to stay another hour, we can talk about that. CTVC, Climate Tech Venture Capital. That's how I stay in tune with what's getting invested in, what's happening in terms of like deep tech. And then, newsletters from like the McKinseys of the world kind of tell you what consulting firms are talking about. But outside of that, I'm a big fan of like escapist, dystopian, and sci-fi literature. If anyone has any good recommendations or anything, I'm always down. A really fun read recently that ties into work that I read was called The Water Knife. It's set in like the not too distant future where out west people are fighting over rights to water from the Colorado River. And we basically descend into this like, city-state war-torn region. And it was fun, but got me thinking a lot about water out west. And now we're seeing the impacts of those water rights and access to water playing out in Southern California. So it feels really timely.
Cadillac Desert is another good water book.
Yep. It's on my shelf right there.
I think I spotted it. Awesome. Yeah. Wow, that was so much good content. Thank you for that treasure trove of information and also for all the books and podcasts. So many great suggestions.
And thank you for joining us on this episode. This has been fantastic.
Yes.
Likewise. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Richard.
Oh,
of course.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Engaging ESG. Have a question for us to consider or a strategy you'd like us to cover? Email us today at engagingesg@gmail.com.
Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to Engaging ESG today. It helps us grow, and even better, be sure to share the podcast with your favorite sustainability, diversity, or social impact colleague. And until next time, keep engaging.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.